Alright, people, midweek report time. So, lot to talk about, lot to go over. News been coming out over the last few days, stuff to report on. But I think we have to preview the fights over the course of the weekends. I say fights because we're talking about, obviously, the main talking point, and it's a fight that I'm looking forward to. I see a lot of other people are looking forward to it. I think the styles will blend well. Is Leigh Wood versus Josh Warrington. It's a great fight, right? In terms of the card, Kieran Conway versus Linus Adofia. That's a really, really good fight. That's a 160 fight. It's for the WBA Intercontinental Middleweight title. You know, I'm going to preview this real quick and we'll talk about the other fight, which has gone a bit under the radar this weekend because I think it's actually got the recipe to be a really, really entertaining cruiserweight fight. It's actually a cruiserweight. You think of these guys at light heavyweight, but no, it's a cruiser. I'll talk about that now in a sec. But Conway Adofia is really good. You know, Linus Adofia, his only career loss was against Denzel Bentley. Now, that was in May of last year. That was in the O2, the smaller O2, the Indigo in the O2 Arena. And you know something? That loss has aged rather quite well when you consider Denzel Bentley acquitted himself very good at world level. He had that first round demolition job against Kieran Smith, I think it was. And all in all, Denzel Bentley's been looking really, really good. Now, that fight was a split decision loss for Linus Adofia. It was a close nip and tuck fight. And to be honest with you, I remember watching, I think it was on Channel 5. Linus Adofia lost that fight more than Denzel Bentley won it, especially in the last round, where Linus Adofia really switched off and he let Denzel Bentley win that round. Other than that, it was a really, really close nip and tuck fight the whole way through, and Linus Adofia was having the better of it at large parts in the fight. And then after, it was really the last hurdle, the last couple of the championship rounds. Bentley obviously was better equipped for those rounds, probably had more in the gas tank. Linus Adofia really took the foot off the gas. But that cost him in that fight. That was for the British title. And again, look what Bentley's gone on to do. Acquitted himself very good at world level. Got that first round win over Kieran Smith. I think he had another fight as well with the British title. And I think he's got a fight coming up soon, actually, does Denzel Bentley. He's got a fight on that. Yeah, Nathan Heaney. Oh, that's easy work for Denzel. Nathan Heaney, he brings a great atmosphere to a fight. He's obviously a big ticket seller. But the guy is garbage. That might be, I know Kieran Smith should have been a harder fight because he is a better fighter than the first round knockout suggests. But put it like this: if Kieran Smith fought Nathan Heaney, I'd be picking Kieran Smith. That doesn't necessarily mean, but he isn't the best, so that's an easy win for Denzel Bentley. So him against Kieran Conway, it's a good fight. I really don't know who I'd be leaning towards in that fight. You know, you would say Conway he's operated at a higher level. You know, I don't think he's ever won the British title though. I think he lost. No, he drew against Cheeseman. And he had an L before that. You know, Conway can be a bit hot and cold sometimes as well. So that's going to be a great scrap. Main event: Wood versus Lara. I was going to say Lara because he's fought him twice. Wood versus Warrington. I'm kind of going back and forth over who I think will win. It's either Josh Warrington on points or Leigh Wood by stoppage. You know, against Luis Alberto Lopez, we see how devastating he looked against Michael Conlan. Warrington, although he failed a lot, which brought him back into that fight, he never looked in danger of being, stopped the way Conlan was. He never appeared to really stutter a bit in that fight. And you would think the fact that his chin was badly dented by Mauricio Lara would mean that he would be likely to do that, but he wasn't. For my money, Lara, and you'd probably argue Lopez would be harder punchers than Leigh Wood, maybe just pound for pound, but I wouldn't say Leigh Wood is far off them. If Lopez can't really hurt Josh Warrington, I wonder can Leigh Wood. And if Leigh Wood can, Josh Warrington is going to outwork him. He's definitely going to outwork him. It's on neutral ground. It's an interesting one. My gut instinct has always been Leigh Wood by knockout in a very entertaining fight, and we will be doing a live watch along for this. I can guarantee that. We'll definitely be doing a live watch along. We'll try and get the co-main into the main, and we should have a good time of it. Probably do a 2-hour live watch along. Should be really good. But my pick for this, because I probably won't get a prediction out, would be Leigh Wood by stoppage, late stoppage. I think he will just wear Josh Warrington down, but at the same time I could see Josh Warrington wearing him down. It's a great fight. It really is. It's a really good fight. I think that it's the kind of fight that we need in the UK, because the cards this year, some have been alright. I mean across all three platforms. Hearn's UK cards, I mean, a lot of them. I mean, well, Jesus Christ, over the summer, how many did he do? He done Joshua. He done that Next Gen show. What else did he do over the summer? Were they the only two? God, I think they were the only two cards. Maybe he did a smaller one. I don't know. I don't remember. He done Katie Taylor. That was in May. But over the summer, he really didn't do much else. So, not been a great deal of UK cards. And this is a decent UK card. It really is. I like the Kieran Conway Linus Adofia fight. It's a good domestic level dust up. And then obviously we look over to the States. We look over to the ballroom in Las Vegas. We have a brilliant fight with Gilberto Ramirez versus Joe Smith Jr. It's going to be a cruiserweight. It's going to be interesting to see. Well, actually, BoxRec have it listed here as 12 rounds at light heavyweight. But on the poster, it was reported it's going to be a cruiserweight. I would imagine it's going to be a cruiserweight, but it's probably going to be like a 190, unofficial limit. They won't weigh in near 200, I reckon. Zurdo versus Smith, Joe Smith Jr., he's not fought since the loss to Artur Beterbiev, which was a lot more devastating than Zurdo's loss, where he was just completely outboxed by Dmitry Bivol. And Zurdo fought a unusual fight, but he's normally someone who does apply pressure, but he tried to box with Bivol, which was just bizarre to me. It really was. And he got completely outboxed. And I really did think he'd do better than that. I really did. I thought he was live in that fight, but then again, Bivol is just tremendously talented. He is very talented. Tremendous fighter is Dmitry Bivol. Him against Joe Smith. If Joe... that's going to be a great fight. I'm going to lean towards Zurdo. I think he's just going to be fresher than Joe Smith Jr., to be honest with you, at this point. But it's a good, interesting fight. Now, the undercard, you've got Bekdamir Melikuziev versus Atlantis Fox. Atlantis Fox, obviously, he's only got 4 losses. He's lost to Demetrius Andre. He was knocked out in, I think, 2 rounds by Liam Williams, a good few years ago now. I think that was 2019. I think that might have even been a final eliminator for the WBO title, if I'm not mistaken. Bekdamir Melikuziev, has he fought since the Gabe Rosado fight? Or is this his... Yeah, his last fight was a win against Gabe Rosado, which was a revenge win. He won it over 10 rounds because he got absolutely brutally knocked out by Gabe Rosado in 3 rounds in 2021. That was on the Jaime Munguia Ceremeto undercard. I think that was the one. And that was actually when DAZN... They don't do this anymore, which is annoying because I liked it. And it's disappointing as well. When DAZN first launched in the UK and Ireland, I guess you could... Well, yeah, really in the UK and Ireland, it was 2021. Obviously, they'd done the Canelo Smith show at the end of 2020. But when they launched in the UK and Ireland and they had the 199 deal, that was never going to last. We all knew that. What they did was, Demetrius Andre, they done it with him, they done it with Ryan Garcia, they done it with a few, where they actually put the US time, like afternoon. So it meant that we were getting the fights, say 11 o'clock at night, which was amazing for us because you're living over here, you're staying up standard to get these fights 4 a.m. at the absolute earliest 4 a.m. If a UFC card is on, you could be looking at 5:30 a.m. before you even see a punch thrown. So when they were doing that, putting these fights, they just don't seem to do that anymore. That was kind of they done it at the start of 2021 and they stopped doing that pretty quick. I missed that because that was so nice. So nice. I don't understand why DAZN don't do that. That just makes... it was so nice. I mean, maybe business-wise they weren't getting the viewers. I don't know. I don't know. But, so what? It's 2 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. Surely you're going to... It's not like, you're sitting down to watch the Premier League, at that time on a Saturday in the US, because it's definitely not on at that time. So I missed that. That was good from DAZN. They're the 2 cards that are on this weekend. Like I said, we will be doing a live watch-along for Lee Wood, Josh Warrington. In terms of some of the boxing news, I was only speaking the other day about Billy Joe Saunders and his return. Well, he's had his say on his defeat to Canelo Alvarez. So, he said, and I quote here, when we got to round 3, I thought, is this it? I was expecting more. I was expecting him to be more of a beast. I came away from that fight with great confidence because I never once felt out of my depth. You had your face broken, pretty much, and you quit in the 8th round, so a bit perplexed as to why you'd say that, but Billy Joe Saunders says a lot of things. never out of his depth. Canelo Alvarez, by the end, by that 8th round, seemed to be like the writing was on the wall. It was absolutely 100% on the wall that he was going to get stopped in that fight by Canelo. There just seemed no doubt in my mind or anyone else's mind watching that he was going to end up getting eventually stopped. And, well, he was stopped on a stool. So, Billy Joe is talking about having a comeback. As I said, I don't envision much coming from that comeback other than maybe a fight at light heavy and then trying to get a big money fight against whoever. And that's it. As I said, I think Billy Joe is coming back for nothing more than to top up the funds. That's it. I don't expect, and I don't think anyone should expect him to come back and still be. Someone was saying in the comment section that, Tyson Fury didn't live a clean life, and he certainly didn't. But then he came back. And I would say, well, that's very different for a variety of reasons. Obviously, Tyson Fury had to lose a lot of weight, right? But he's not cutting, dehydrating artificially to get down to weights that aren't for really you. Yeah, I'll admit, for the Otto Valeen fight and stuff like that, he was trying to come in 250, trying to get to what he was around the Klitschko fight. His body just couldn't do that safely anymore without draining himself. So he just said, right, I'm just going to train to train. And obviously, we saw what happened in the Wilder rematch. He looked very, very, very good. He looked brilliant in that fight. You're a heavyweight. You're not having to deplete your body to that extent, to that serious extent. Billy Joe Saunders, God knows what he's weighing now. God knows what the peak weight was. But he's having to go down. And it's not like he can even just train normally. He's having to restrict calories, everything. It's going to have a big knock-on effect on you if you're having to cut weight. Big. It's much worse if you're having to cut weight than if you shouldn't be doing it as a heavyweight in general. It's bad in general, but it's not as detrimental. You can get away with it a little bit longer a heavyweight than you can if you're fighting, look at Kell Brook, for example, I mean, Kell Brook should have done way more with his career, but all the blowing up, funny enough, he doesn't seem to blow up anymore now that he's retired. He seems to be kind of normal weight, because I remember seeing pictures of him and hearing stories about him outside camp. And you'd be just thinking, like, what the hell are you going to come into camp as? Crazy. So PBC's contract with Showtime, this is reportedly not set to be renewed, right? Because nothing has been officially confirmed as of yet, but it's reported that Showtime are probably going to pull out of boxing apart from big pay-per-view events. But HBO said they do big pay-per-view events. And have they done one since 2018 when they pulled out? No. Because if you're only going to do big, you're going to have to bid crazy money, try and recruit. I don't think that's feasible for Showtime or anyone to just do pay-per-view events. So PBC, apparently Al Heyman is holding talks with Amazon Prime about potential boxing deal. Following report, Showtime will not be renewing their contract. It's claimed that Amazon Prime is PBC's preferred destination. Now, I don't have Amazon Prime. It is a streaming service. Obviously, it's not. It'd be like, kind of Netflix and stuff like that. It is a streaming service, and with the way boxing, and I say boxing, the way sport in general, and how it's being broadcasted, to be honest with you, it looks to me, because other sports are following suit, that's the way to go. I mean, if you look at darts, for example, and Barry Hearn's the chairman. I think Eddie Hearn's the chairman now at the PDC. But the Hearns, they are high up with darts. They're PDC, and, they run that. They put a lot of their shows, and more so now, you're seeing darts go onto their own website, which is pdc.tv. You can watch all the tournaments that are behind closed doors. You can watch all the tours they take into Europe and stuff like that. Obviously, they still have that deal with Sky, which I think they signed that deal in 2021, which is a bit bizarre because that was the year Hearn took the boxing off Sky to the Zone. You would think that you would just take darts as well and just try and get it on the Zone, because that would bring a lot more views in, because it's a bigger sport commercially in the UK than boxing is. That's a topic for another video. But they're starting to do more of that. F1 have their own, streaming site where they do alternate commentary and stuff like that, which is better than Sky. With the exception of Martin Brundle, that Sky team is a joke. Complete joke. Terrible. Absolutely horrible. Take Martin Brundle out, who's very good. That Sky F1 team that makes the Zone, and the broadcasting team of the Zone, that makes that team look like, charisma on steroids. That's how bad the Sky F1 team is. They are horrendous. So I think if they're going to go and follow suit as well in the next few years, I think that's the way sport in general is going to go. I reckon it's just going to be mainly on streaming services, which is that a bad thing? You know? I don't know. Obviously with the Zone, it was a case of the end of pay-per-view. That was a big fat lie. Probably would be the same on Amazon Prime, I would imagine so. They just they keep the pay-per-view model, which, you know, that is the way it is, I suppose. You know, it's not sustainable, I suppose, not putting everything behind a paywall, especially with the amount of money that's being paid to fighters nowadays. It's got to be unsustainable. Eddie Hearn has reportedly told reporters that there is a possibility that Joshua could fight on the same card as Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn on December 23rd if the fight gets made. AJ decides to stay active while Deontay Wilder talks continue. He said the show could take place in the UAE, Abu Dhabi. Interesting. So he's still talking about doing Ben Eubank, right? Which is, you know, and interestingly, UAE, not in the UK, where you would imagine in the UK, well, definitely, actually, of course it would be at its biggest hype in the UK. But obviously, December the 23rd, that is the day we're hearing about Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk. And also, it's being reported that there is a two-way rematch for this, meaning that the loser can force a second fight. Bit like what Terence Crawford and Errol Spence had. And that's a bit different, obviously, because there's a weight. You know, the winner can decide on the weight. Obviously, they're heavyweights. They ain't going to decide on no weight. But obviously, if Fury wins, Usyk can trigger a rematch, and vice versa. Usyk wins, Fury can trigger a rematch. The only issue there, well, it's not even an issue per se. It would just mean that the rematch likely wouldn't be for Undisputed, because the IBF has sent a letter to both camps confirming that the winner of the Undisputed fight will be then ordered to face Filip Hrgovic next. No exceptions allowed. Meaning that if Fury and Usyk rematch as expected, and Hrgovic, when you hear this, will be ordered to face the next available contender in their rankings, that is currently Anthony Joshua. Interesting. Now, I know if Tyson Fury wins, he's always said that he wants to just chuck that IBF title away because they stripped him almost immediately after he won that from Vladimir Klitschko, because Fury had signed a rematch clause, which he wasn't really obliged to do. He was mandatory with the WBO. He wasn't obliged to sign a rematch clause, but he did. Obviously, there was a mandatory waiting in the wings. It was Vyacheslav Glasov, who's never fought since then, actually, since the Charles Martin fight it was 7 years ago. He blew his knee out in that fight, never fought again. It must have been really, really bad. But he was the mandatory with the IBF being sticklers. They were like, yous ain't rematching, give me that title. Fury said that he always felt aggrieved by that, so if he ever won it, he'd been it straight away. Look, to be honest with you, I would imagine that if they did a rematch, the fact that we will have had Undisputed, because all I've said before, I want to see Undisputed. I don't expect them to hold it for a long time, but normally is the case with Undisputed. There are exceptions, of course. We look at Josh Taylor. As soon as he won Undisputed, he made one defense and they all went bye, because obviously mandatories come up and all that stuff. Canelo is in a bit more of a privileged position, biggest cash cow in boxing. He can probably not defend that title for another year, and none of them would bat an eyelid. But a lot of the time they will enforce it. The IBF are sticklers for that, so I expect them to do that. In terms of Usyk Fury having a rematch, you know, do you remember Fury was saying that back in April when he was trying to say, you know, oh, well, they're the ones moving the goalpost, when Usyk was insisting upon a rematch clause and him saying take the rematch clause out, or it could have been the other way around. But nevertheless, there's a rematch clause in this. I think it was actually that Usyk would like keep the rematch because there was a rematch. I think Fury was even insinuating before negotiations even started that there needed to be a rematch clause. Then he was saying take it out. It was just him moving the goalposts. Finally, the goalpost can be moved no longer, and we finally get the fight that we all want to see, which is Usyk versus Fury. Now, I know a lot of people are still saying that, gee, don't jump the gun, you never know. I think the fact that we're hearing it from both sides leads me to believe that we will likely get this fight. And if it is on December 23rd, as Eddie Hearn was saying, he's trying to do Ben Eubank for that date. I think even in the Boxing King media interview that Hearn gave over the weekend, he was even acknowledging the fact that, look, if Fury Usyk does happen on that date, yeah, we may need to look at moving that fight, because you're going up against a Herculean fight. It's massive fight. And people keep saying, gee, are we counting out Francis Ngannou? Because the footage of Ngannou, where he's been on the pads not looking so good, where he's been hitting the bag not looking so good, you have people saying, and people have been messaging me and saying, gee, do you think he's holding back, trying to lull us into a false sense of security? And it's like, no, I don't, quite frankly. I would actually expect it the other way around. So if Tyson Fury was maybe on the pads not looking the best and, hitting the bag and getting a bit breathless, I would actually say that's Tyson Fury playing possum, trying to get people believing this is competitive. Because if you cast your minds back to the only other type of fight like this, and it is different because obviously it was done at a different weight. Floyd wasn't active. You're talking about McGregor, Floyd. I mean, Team McGregor did everything in their power, everything, to make McGregor look like a killer in the ring, right? Hitting the bag as hard as he could, use it, like when he was sparring Paulie, the little clips of success that he was having, make sure at them and just say it was one-sided, it was this, that and the other. And we've never seen the footage of that spar, and judging by how McGregor looks in the boxing ring, I would say that spar, even with an over the hill old Paulie, was probably reasonably competitive, right? And you had Floyd, patting around the bag and saying stuff like, I'm old and stuff. That was all to sell that fight as competitive, right? I think given the fact now that the Usyk fight is lined up, you've seen John Fury even change his tune a bit on this fight, saying, is that all you got? I think everyone knows that this is just, it's a glorified exhibition. I'm not sure still if it's going to go on their record or not, but it is essentially a glorified exhibition. I think a lot of people have kind of realised, okay, look, this is a stopgap. This is fine, get your money, you're fighting Usyk next, right? That's the main thing, right? I'd like them to have already announced it, but if they announce it straight in the ring after, happy out. If we get it before the end of the year, that's a very, very Merry Christmas for everyone involved, isn't it? Be amazing, really would be. You never know. Well, by all accounts, it's looking good, lads. Whether we get it before Christmas or not, I don't know. But if we even if we don't get it by Christmas, if they say in the ring, here's the date, January 28th, arbitrary date, it's locked in. That's just as good. We have a date. That's the main thing. Location, etc. That's the main thing. But going back to what I was saying about Ngannou, he's never boxed before professionally. It's a completely different. Being a good striker in the octagon is completely. You could take a really, really good striker and put him in there against an amateur. Not a Team GB, just an amateur, and you'd see. It's a completely different. And look, I'm not saying that just because you're in MMA or that you're. I like MMA. I'm really getting into it now more so that I've started watching it, and I greatly admire the guys who do MMA because to be a jack of all trades like some of these guys are, to be able to defend against kicks, takedowns, etc., submissions. It's incredible. Like it really is, and it's fun to watch. I'm getting a lot more into MMA now, and UFC particularly. I'm looking forward to some of the fights. Obviously Stipe and John Jones in November. I can't wait for that fight. That is one that I'll probably even talk about maybe in midweek report review of the week. When it comes around, because I'm so looking forward to that. But again, you're taking someone from that world into boxing where we're looking, and you're having proper looks, and you're like, it's just no. And I always used the McGregor Mayweather one where it was like, get everyone thinking McGregor can win, make him look as flipping good as you can. And Floyd obviously played his part, he kind of, didn't give anything away and just, it's been a while, this, that, and the other. It's different because one, it's a heavyweight, you say it's not that different, they're still fighting, they're still, still weight, but Tyson is an active fighter and is, by all accounts, going into the biggest fight of his career against the toughest opponent of his career, on paper anyway. And Floyd was going to sail off into the sunset. Was he going to fight Keith Thurman? Was he in as you know what? Was he going to fight Errol Spence? Was he Kell Brook? Was he ever? He was not going to do any of that. So for him, it was just make the money, see you later, go home, make McGregor look good, get eyes on this, see you later. That's all it was. That's literally all that was. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'm seeing Canelo Charlo, it says here, according to the picture of Health Dan Raphael. They did between 650,000 to 700,000 US pay-per-view buys. Canelo's done over 1 million a couple of times with Triple G. I think he did close to 1 million with Chavez, or did he do 1 million? Because that was a lot of intrigue about that. Was on Mexican Independence Day or Cinco de Mayo weekend, I think it was. He came close to 1 mil with Cotto, but Miguel Cotto, we know, was a big star, was a huge star. So that's right round about in the Canelo range. I wonder what he did with Plant. Did he actually match? Because I'm wondering, because that'd be strange if Canelo did more pay-per-view buys with Plant than he did with Charlo. I'll just do a real quick check on Canelo pay-per-view buys, because I'd like to know again what that pay-per-view buy rate for Plant was. It was 800,000. Oh Jesus, wow. 800,000. Crazy. So he potentially, Caleb Plant did more pay-per-view buys than Canelo. Interesting. Or than Charlo. It's real interesting, that. I wouldn't have thought that. Anyway, not to bore you with buy rate and stuff like that, I will leave it there. I hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. You looking forward to the fights this weekend? I certainly am. Leave a like in the comment. Leave a like and a comment. Share it as well. That does actually really help out as well. And for now, I will leave you with that. Peace.